Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts, Damian Boat and Catherine Bramkamp.
Hey, this is episode 167, and Catherine's back from moving.
I'm back.
Yes, it's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You didn't pull any muscles carrying all those boxes for your son?
I did not. We had a very low-key, mellow trip delivering all of the boxes, Nintendo systems, Nintendo games, Magic cards, 2 huge binders of Magic cards, one box of stuffed animals, and then another, I'm going to say a dozen boxes of books. And what am I going to say? I'm not going to bring up my child's books. Those are important items. I've been schlepping books to our other house as we speak. Yeah. So it was all important stuff for him, but he was a little taken aback when he looked at how much stuff we were delivering to his new house.
So this is the son that looks like Harry Potter, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Why don't you just say like Movicus and it just all moved?
Oh, his wife would have liked that. She would have liked him to say Disappearius.
God. I don't know. Well, I just want to throw it out there very quickly to those that listened to last week's show. Apologies on the ending. For some reason, the little volume bit that I select didn't actually apply. So if you ended up having your brains blown out by, I don't know, polka music, then that was my fault. So
our little gift to you.
A gift to you. Polka. Merry-go-round. Anyway, now this week, we have a very special guest on. We have Vicki Hudson on. Good morning or afternoon.
Afternoon and morning.
Yes.
Yep.
But as my contractor says, it's always beer drinking time somewhere.
No, my mother says that.
Really? Well, they should get together.
Oh, yeah.
They should hang out and drink.
Yes, they should. Because she likes her Guinness, and it's beer drinking time. It must be 5 o'clock someplace. Yes, Mom. Why not?
My rugby team used to say that.
There's nothing wrong with Guinness either. I like my Guinness.
No. So you can stand a fork a minute, but other than that,
it is a food group, by the way.
Yes, I think it is a food group.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
I thought I hid that. Sorry.
No. We might be able to rename the show the Tuberculosis Show.
There you go, between the two of you.
It's not good. Well, we try not to stress Vicki too much. It sounds like she's got a cold. So I'll go easy. I'll be nice.
So Vicki, we have Vicki on because she wrote a book called No Red Pen, which is writers, writing groups, and critique groups or critiques. And I read it, Vicki, and I was interested in your, not necessarily your approach because it's very sensible, but just what inspired you to write about critique groups. What was your experience that would, usually we have a pretty interesting experience that make us want to write a book about it. So what was yours?
Well, I went to an MFA program at St. Mary's College of California in 2006, and I spent the summer leading up to that on writing.com, teaching myself more about how to do critiques and critiquing things on there. It's a great beginning writer website with a lot of resources, trying to get ready to be a good critique partner in workshop when I get to my graduate program. And then I got to my graduate program and discovered that of the 8 or 9 people in my cohort, only 1 or 2 actually knew how to give good feedback. And I'd spent some time in a community college writing group, a writing class that doubled as a writing group for about half of us for about 10 years. And the techniques and the critique that happened in there was just phenomenal. It was terrific work. And I didn't see that in my graduate program. So it wasn't there, and it was missing. And one of the things I do in life is see what's missing and fill it in. And that's why I wrote the book.
So how do you then do, effective critiquing? Like I would just go, yep, shit, and then just put a line through it. But that's why I failed.
Know.
What? Come on. Your book is better for it.
Well, what I would ask you is, why did you think that was shit?
Well,
because it doesn't do anything to tell me it's shit. I can't fix it with that.
Yeah, see, that's where it opened up a big thing, because I did this to Catherine's book and she got like 5 pages of why. And I went, okay, that's page 1. So, yes.
But that kind of thing is very helpful. So let's talk, what kinds of bad critiques, and I can chime in on this as well with some of the writer groups that I have joined and subsequently left. What were some of the examples that were bad? What's a bad critique? What's a bad writing club or writing critique group kind of comment?
Well, I think when someone says, "Oh, I hated that story," and that's all you get, that really is helpful. That doesn't help me fix anything. I don't know why you hated it. I don't know if this is your own personal issues or it is actually horrible prose that I wrote. And what people do a lot of times is they base their critique on it. They liked it or they didn't like it. And when you like it, you can come up with a lot of adjectives. But when you don't like it, you really can't define that. And so I ask that people do the hard work of defining what it is they don't like. And they might discover that it wasn't at all the writing they didn't like. The writing just sparked something in them and made a connection. That's what they didn't like. And that actually is very good writing, when you can create a connection.
Do you think there's a little bit of the thing that a lot of authors are quite sensitive to things? So it's easy to say, oh, I really liked it because of such and such, because you know that it'll give them a good feeling. But then there's that other thing, I didn't like it because, well, this was poorly written, you didn't edit this, that was misspelt, etc., etc. And you sort of basically shoot them down, and no one really wants to be sort of on the receiving end of that either. Could that be a little bit of a filter to say, I didn't really like it? It's like, well, why? Well, I just didn't. Because they don't want to then, bombard that person with negativity.
Well, I think writing or responding to a writer with, I liked it or I didn't like it, is actually kind of irrelevant, because it's not really helpful. So, and that's what people use because they don't really know what else to say. And if you approach the writing with respect and you approach the writer with respect, you can find the words to describe what it is you didn't like or what it is you liked. And the hard part is that personal feeling we have where we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But again, if you are working with what the feeling was, as opposed to, I just didn't like it, you're going to give some useful information. And if the writer is seeking that, and it's done in a respectful way, they can hear what's wrong with the writing as not an attack on them. And that's a big thing for emerging writers and new writers, someone in their first 1 or 2 writing groups, is their spirit can get crushed with too much negative information that doesn't really help them.
I think if they want it, though, I think if someone just posts up and you see it on Facebook, Google, going, oh, I've just written this, and then you get someone like me go, yeah, okay. I don't know if that's necessarily the right place to give them feedback. Is it better to just not say anything and just think, well, they just posted it up, they didn't actually ask for any feedback? Or is it proper to actually give them that feedback, even if it is terrible?
Well, I think somebody that just posts something up, just throws it out online or puts it out on Facebook or just says, here, I wrote this. They're not really asking for feedback. They're asking for acknowledgement that they accomplished writing it.
Yeah.
If they really want feedback, they'll go to places where people know how to give feedback. And that's, I think, a misstep that a lot of young writers make, in that they think I can just put it out there and ask people to tell me what they think, when you've got to have informed critiquers who know how to give critique. Obviously, you give it to your mother, she's going to love it. You give it to your best friend, they're going to tell you they like it. These people love you. They don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
You give it to an informed, experienced critique person who respects you, respects the writing, they will find a way to communicate to you in a way that works, so you can hear what you need to improve and hear what you need to keep.
Have you ever had it where, either you've had something, a critique come back, or you've seen someone else get one where it comes down to it where they go, yeah, okay, that was so terrible, I can't even fix it?
Well, I think that whenever you read anything, you can find something that is positive.
The title.
And I think you do a disservice to not find anything positive, only find bad things and negative things, because that's going to crush the spirit of the writer who's trying to learn a craft. So I really think it's important to always give something that is positive, even if it's one sentence out of 1,000 words. You acknowledge how great that sentence was and why.
Yeah. So have you ever had that with some of your work? And you think, crikey, I thought this was brilliant.
Oh, yeah, I've written some things and I thought it was just the greatest thing ever, and then gave it to somebody and they showed me how it wasn't the greatest thing ever.
But then how do you then weigh it up if you've got 3 or 4 people come back and like 2 or 3 of them are good, like fairly good, so yeah, it's not too bad, and then there's one that is just slaughters it, but gives you reasons why? Can that also sort of confuse a writer going, well, hang on,
Right.
what do I do here? Do I change it to suit that one person to make it work, and then potentially the other 3 will then come back and go, well, would you change that bit for? That was actually quite good. How do you make that decision about what to change based on what you've been given as feedback?
Well, you don't change it based on making anybody else happy with what they're reading. You don't change it for the critiquers. You change it because the reasons they gave you for why, say, a paragraph doesn't work or a transition doesn't work make sense to you within the context of what it is you're trying to create. So all critiquers are doing are giving you information. It's your job as the writer to figure out if that information applies to what you're doing and if it can tell you where to go next. Which is why if I say I don't like it and I don't see anything else, I don't give you any way to take any more steps. But if I say I don't like it because I don't want to go to that place that reminds me of my terrible experience with my father when I lost my dog, and then that tells me, wow, I really created a negative emotional response. I think I probably want to keep this as opposed to changing it.
I guess, yeah, you don't want to have someone say, I think that story you wrote, you should change it from a dog to a cat. Yeah, but it's a true story about my dog.
Well, that works for nonfiction, but in fiction, maybe you do change it from a dog to a cat.
Or a flying lucky dragon. Anyway.
There you go.
Game of
Thrones.
Thrones.
I think that
Game of Thrones.
One of the reasons that I encourage people when they're just starting out or they finish a manuscript and they need feedback, but sometimes it can be better to pay for a coach, to pay for a team to help with the book, because professionals do understand how to give the right kind of feedback. And I know you just, Damien, when you said, the title, sometimes the first positive thing I can say to a student after they've turned a paper in is, well, you got this in on time.
Right.
So now let's talk about what we need to improve on. But that's, I've learned, I know the language and I know how to do it without them just like, oh my God, I've just been devastated. Because you're right. I don't want to do that to any new writer, because that doesn't really serve anybody.
What do you do if someone challenges it, Catherine? Like if you've given, a student some feedback and said that this is pretty average, this is how you can improve, and they turn and go, yeah, well, I think you're wrong.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had that. But then I hold the grades. So I told them, if you disagree with me, it has to be well written. Yeah. So they absolutely can, they can write something that I don't agree with, which they often do, and that's fine as long as everything's backed up. So it's not personal for me, but it's got to be really backed up. And if they don't listen, then that does affect their grade. So it's like, well, you can write whatever you want to, but I'm giving the grade, dude. So that's different than as Vicki pointed out, a critique group, or even, we've learned how in my book club, we've learned how to say, I didn't like the book because of this, instead of just being snotty and saying, oh, I just hated it. Well, I agree with you, Vicki. Why? Give us some reasons, because that can be insightful. It can be personal, but you want a why, not just a blanket, oh, hated it.
I think it's a big challenge for people to be able to give feedback on what we commonly refer to as the negative information, and do it in such a way and do it well so that the writer comes away with useful information that is actionable, as opposed to sore feelings and hurt feelings because they were told they couldn't write. And I think that's the key.
I've got a question for you. You were in the military police.
I was.
Did you ever get to say, stop, police?
I did get to put handcuffs on somebody.
Really? Well, we don't talk about what happens at night. We need to know what... No. So what enticed you to get into that sort of thing? We've had a couple of people that were in sort of, the armed forces and that sort of thing. And I always ask this, at what point did you go, yes, I want to be put through basic training and I want to be put through that sort of stuff?
Well, nobody wants to be put through basic training. It's just one of the steps. But I wanted to be in the military ever since I was, like 9 or 10, 11, 12. And part of it was my mother was a teacher, and we traveled a lot, and I saw a lot of different things as a kid. And we have some historical stories and heritage in my family for early colonial America. And so I had a sense of, we have a lot of things in the United States that a lot of people don't have. And because I have these rights, I also have responsibility, and I should give something back. And to me, that looked like join the military.
Huh.
Very cool.
It's an interesting thing, though.
Stay? Oops.
So,
How long did you stay in?
33 years.
Oh, wow. Totally career. That's awesome.
Yes, 33 years career in the Army Reserves. So I also had a real job somewhere else that was full-time. And every 5 different times I had to leave my job and my family for active duty call-ups for a couple of different wars.
How does that work?
How long were you overseas?
A couple years altogether.
Okay. And did you come away with insights or opinions after your tours?
I came away with many insights and lots of stories. And some of those stories are in a collection that I'm working on now.
Oh, good. Good. Do you have a tentative title for the collection?
I do, but it's written down and I can't remember it.
Oh, well, I've called this show Drop Down and Give Me 30, so we'll call it that. When you're obviously you're working full time, you got what in quotes a normal job. At what point do you then go to your boss and say, "Hey, look, I've been called for active duty, so I'm resigning"? What a brilliant excuse to leave a job.
Well, you don't resign. You say, "Here's a copy of my orders. This is when my last day is, and thank you for your support and holding my job for when I get back." Because in the United States, military leave is a federal law for reservists and guard who are called up. Your job has to let you go, and they have to give you back the same job or an equivalent job in stature and pay and things when you come back.
What happens if that company isn't around anymore?
Well, then you're kind of stuck. But.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if one of my guys just came up to me and said, "Yeah, not going to be here anymore." Damn, what's your excuse? Going to war. Okay, that'll do.
But you tell
it does give you a lot to write about.
Employees know that ahead of time when they're hiring you, right?
Sometimes if you put it on your resume, it's not. I don't think they can ask it. And it's not on job applications usually. There is some conflict with employers. There's a whole division of the United States government that deals with employer-military relations for employment and reemployment.
Wow. Wow. Well, has your experiences been good, bad, indifferent?
Well, my first war, I came back. I was a financial aid officer for the University of Florida when I went to war. When I came back, my position did not exist, so they put me in entirely another position, which I was grossly underqualified for, and eventually that didn't work out too well.
Oh, that's frustrating, isn't it? Especially if you didn't anticipate it.
But hey, they gave you director. It was fine.
Yeah.
I think you've earned this. Here, you can run the show. So. Okay, because this sort of area fascinates me because, you'd never get me doing push-ups or any sort of active service because basically I'm a wuss. I'd be hiding behind you. But what's the funniest hazing or, thing that's happened while you've been away on service? Someone, I don't know.
Someone did to me. It was the funniest prank. Well, I was in my pre-commissioning training as a cadet, and I got a weekend pass to leave the installation for a night. So I left to visit some friends. When I came back, I couldn't find my locker in the barracks. And I looked all over in our big barracks, which is, a bay barracks. So 40 women live in this open room. And I finally found my locker. And then I had the hardest time getting the lock unlocked. And I couldn't figure out why the lock was upside down until I figured out my entire locker was upside down. So I found out when I opened it up and everything fell out.
Jeez. So there was
that seems pretty benign.
Yeah, there was no, waking up covered in red paint or anything.
Well, that's what they do when they don't like you.
Oh. So what have you done then to someone that you didn't like? Now we're getting something.
Oh, no. I did not engage in hazing pranks because hazing is antisocial.
Oh, yes, well, I suppose you do really need to work as a team, don't you? You don't want to put someone off in the group.
That's right.
They need to keep you back. What I found, I was reading only yesterday, I saw it as an article that went past, was there was I think it was the guitar player for Nirvana when they first started. He got kicked out of that band, and then he joined Soundgarden and got kicked out of that band. I'm thinking, man, have this guy in your band before that, because all those bands become famous. He then went, stuff this, I can't take this sort of lifestyle anymore. He joined the armed forces and became some elite special soldier. I was just like, wow, that's a career change.
I think I read about that guy.
Yeah. It was such a fascinating read. And I was just trying to work out sort of how the mind works to go do that, because I've been in that world of bands and long hair and late nights. And I can tell you, not one of them I thought would go, yeah, we're going to go and protect my country. And they have enough trouble protecting the fridge. But yeah, it must serve as a good sort of inspiration then. Did you have that urge while you were away on service, and even when you came back, to sort of debrief yourself by writing all this down? Did it help?
No, I've been a writer a lot longer than I've been a soldier. So when I was away, I kept a journal and wrote some things and kept all the letters people sent. And some friends gave me back the letters that I had sent for me to use as material. So writing about the experience, I've always been a poet and a nonfiction writer. So it was just a natural progression to put all that down. And that eventually became my thesis for my Master's of Fine Arts.
Oh, well, does it help? We often hear about people who are in the armed forces that end up with post-traumatic stress syndrome and all those sorts of things. Would it help you because you can write it all down, get it out, rather than internalizing it all?
Well, there actually is a writing program at Walter Reed and in Washington, D.C. that's been exported to a number of places by the creator, Ron Capps, which teaches veterans how to write their story in whatever genre that works for them, to write about their experiences. There's a great literary journal called ODOG 30, and they have a website of the same name that publishes a lot of these writings. And it is a great tool for veterans and for anyone with trauma to work through what happened, or to share the story in a way that provides some protection that's different than if I share the story face to face, but I write the story and then you read it in your own space. I'm still able to communicate what happened, which creates a bridge to those that have no idea what military experience is like. And that's one of the reasons why I write about it, is to create that bridge.
Well, yeah, because it is a very sort of, it seems like a niche or a secret sort of world a little bit. For people like me, just an ordinary wimpy civilian, you don't really get much of an insight other than what the media decides to fluff up.
Right, and the media is not necessarily accurate, so it's direct experience would be so much better.
Yeah, the media only wants to show you the blood and guts and the horrible, nasty things because that's what they think people want to see. So you don't hear about the really phenomenally good things that can be accomplished even on a battlefield. So getting all those stories and sharing them with the civilian public is, I think, a particularly useful tool to help bind the wounds that both populations have.
Did you ever sort of have someone close to you that was away with you and you can see that they're not coping? And do you sort of say to them, maybe you should write some of this stuff down? Or did you just talk to them and say, let me write it down for you, try and get it out of their heads?
I have suggested to people who are working through their reintegration that writing and talking are good tools.
And do they listen to you?
Sometimes. Sometimes I won't ever know the answer.
We can say it, but sometimes they just look at you like, yeah, whatever. I'm strong, and then they never follow through.
Yeah, well, all you can do is influence your little pond. How big your pond is, or whether it's a puddle or an ocean, you can only influence right where you are. So, as a battalion commander with hundreds of soldiers, when I would talk about PTSD and I would talk about suicide prevention, which is a huge epidemic in the American military.
Yeah.
I would always recommend I talk about it. I have a counselor. I've written about it. These are tools that will help you trying to destigmatize that. But now as a veteran, I don't have a pond that has 400 people in it. I have a pond that has occasional individuals that I meet ad hoc. And so those are just the same conversations, just done a little more personally.
Mm-hmm.
How was it the first time someone saluted you because you were a higher rank? Well,
that's always a really big thrill, and you got to make sure you've got the silver dollar to give to them right after they salute you.
You didn't go, oh, I'll do it again.
No, but that's what you're thinking. I can't believe they just did that.
Yeah.
I finally got it.
And then does it wear off after a while and you start to be picky? I don't know. I'm starting to base this on Hollywood now, where you go, that salute was unacceptable. I want to see that again.
I think for some people it does wear off and they don't value it. And for others, if you truly understand the purpose of the salute and have grokked that into your sense of being as a service member, the salute always has value, and it's always an important tradition that you are part of continuing. And for me, the salute was always an important part of my contributing to our tradition that ties us all together from the past to the future.
And is that something you can do outside of being in the Army or the Armed Forces, where like if you've retired from it and then you happen to see someone else that served with you, can you still salute each other in the street? Or does that not happen?
You can. In fact, the veterans can salute the flag when it's going up or down, where civilians have to put their hand over their heart. We can continue to salute. Certainly, if I saw a senior officer who I had a relationship, I would salute them, even if in civilian clothes, perhaps. I don't have to at this point, but if I want to render that respect, I could.
So then it'd be disrespectful if I saluted you as a bit of a joke.
Well, that happens all the time. And if a civilian does it, how I interpret that is usually they're just trying to express a means of respect or acknowledge my service, and I'll take it in the spirit that it was rendered without any comment on how well they performed it.
Elbow up. It's just, I don't know. I find it fascinating. So with the writing then, do you find yourself, I don't know, well, I don't want to use the word typecast, but following down that road, or do you try and write sort of outside of the experiences you've had serving in the armed forces? Do you find, I might, I don't know, write a story about dragons this week?
I spent an entire year last year just doing poetry, and most of my poetry was not at all about my experience in the military. And I write narrative nonfiction, and that there's a lot of my writing that's in that genre that's been about the military, and some not. And then my fiction has been reflecting some experiences in the military. But for a large part, most of my writing the last couple of years has not been around the military, as I've tried to work on other of my writing muscles than that particular one.
How are you finding the poetry then?
I found my year of poetry focused went rather well. I went to a couple different poetry workshops, week-long retreat things, and studied with a couple really terrific poets. Camilla Dungy was one. Joseph Bahanti, who was the poet laureate for North Carolina a couple years ago, and learned a tremendous lot about the form of poetry, which I had not studied in my MFA program, and I found very challenging. So I wrote a bunch of stuff. I sent away about 25 things. I got about 40% of them published. So it was a good year.
Well, that is a good year. How many poems did you, in a year, how many poems did you produce? People always ask, the numbers question.
Oh, I don't know how to answer that, because they kind of merged together from ones I'd written earlier that I was revising and the new ones that I wrote. I was working on a collection, though. That year I started 2 collections. One was about guns and violence in American society, and I've written 4 or 5 poems on that. And that's very hard when I come and go with that one. And then a more direct one that I've spent more time with, I've written about 12 poems for, is about a same gendered family, 2 moms and the kids, and what it's like being the other mom, not the biological mom, but the other mom. And so how that developed is a lot of those seem to be more about mortality than about specifically being the second mom. And that's been a very interesting collection that I've been developing.
Oh, very, very cool. And where did you find, or how did you choose the workshops that you went to? What were the features that drew you to them? I mean, people are looking at, there's so many, especially we're coming up on National Poetry Month in April. There's so many choices. What was your criteria?
Well, one was the Veterans Writing Foundation through Ron Capps, and they held one for veterans hosted by George Washington University in DC, with all expenses paid, including your transportation. So I hopped on that one as soon as I saw it. And decided, well, this is a good one. I'll try poetry. Yeah. And I had a great experience in it. And so from there, I thought, okay, I'm going to continue this exploration in poetry. And part of that came from, I had talked with Eloise Healy when I was at the AWP conference a few years ago about wanting to go for another MFA in poetry, which is a very expensive thing to do. And she said, well, before you do that and drop another $40,000 into debt with student loans, go to some conferences. So I was taking her advice. The second one was the Napa Valley Writers Conference that's held here at home in Napa Valley. It's about, a 40-minute drive for me, which meant I didn't have any really transportation costs. And I applied for and received one of their scholarships to attend. Oh, and that's cool. That's where I studied with Camilla Dungy, and that was a terrific week of study and interaction.
Yeah, I've volunteered for that for a few years. It's a really good workshop / conference. Yeah. Oh, that's cool to know that it was valuable.
It was. And I was thrilled when Camilla was the substitute workshop leader, because the workshop leader I was assigned to fell out. And I had met her at the San Francisco Writers Conference that same year. So was thrilled to be able to work with her again.
Oh, very cool. Tell us a little bit about, again, sometimes we don't know what this is like. Let's talk about the Napa one in particular. What was your experience with that? What does that look like for a writer? You walk in, do you send things in ahead? Do you make new friends? How does it work?
You don't make enemies. You don't walk in there and go, all right, I hate the lot of you. Where's my seat?
Well, she's a better shot than most of the people she would meet anyway. So.
Well, I'm by nature an introvert, which a lot of people that have seen me in my professional capacities don't always agree with. But I really have some social anxiety in going into situations like a conference. So I was fortunate in that in the housing situations, I was able to be by myself, which isn't always possible. And the workshops we had 3 or 4 workshops with our workshop leader, and then the rest of the time was craft talk or writing time. And I ended up making friends with a group of 3 or 4 poets that were all from the Bay Area. And we stayed in contact. We're still in contact, but we stayed more directly in contact for the first 6 months after that conference, and we're exchanging work and trying to plan where we could get together and things like that. And so that lasting network develops out of a conference. I'm still in touch with Camilla Dong-hee as I follow her to see if there's a conference where she's going to be at, so I can try to get her mentorship again. She sometimes drops me a Facebook line of, I'm going to be at this conference, you probably like it, things like that. So you build a relationship with your workshop leader. And then you go from there. If you want to be totally isolated, you can. But there's an invitation to interact either one-on-one or with small groups throughout the entire conference.
Do they? Because I've not been to these things, and Catherine goes to them a fair bit. Do they make you read out your work?
Well, you sometimes will read out your work in the workshop, depending on how the workshop leader is structuring it. And I learned a great deal about workshopping in mine because we had a different workshop method every day, and that was a terrific tool that the workshop leader did in my particular workshop. Sometimes we read things out, sometimes we wrote things and we would read those. We have the opportunity to do a reading at the end of the conference. Not everyone necessarily has to read, but everyone is, of course, encouraged to, and most people do want to read their work.
I was just thinking of, some people aren't comfortable. It always comes back to, writers are introvert, social anxiety. I know I've always suffered with the social anxiety side of things, and getting up and speaking or talking or reading is a very hard thing to do. And so if you've written something down, you're in a workshop, it's not going to be refined or very good in that regard. And then they say, okay, Damien, you're next. And then can that destroy what you've written by going, and you can't deliver it then the way that you've envisioned it being delivered?
Well, part of reading in public is practicing reading. And how I do it is I've always practiced it. If all possible, I go to the room I'm going to be reading in later, and I practice in that room. But that comes out of my training as a public speaker in the military and other areas. I think that in workshop venues, people know it's not polished. For me personally, I have a very hard time reading some of my poetry and some of my stories that are from direct experience. And some of the discussion that we had in my workshop was about, well, how do you move past the emotion to continue reading? And the answer was, part of it is practice. You practice that piece hundreds of times, so you know where the emotion is going to come, and then you know how to get past it. And the other is sometimes the emotion is part of the reading. And that can bring the listeners that much more connection with what you're trying to communicate.
I mean, obviously, being in the military, and you said you're in sort of charge of a number of people, you'd have to get used to speaking, I guess. And because you mentioned that you're sort of a bit introverted, and that can be hard. How do you overcome that? Is it just pure practice? Just going, well, I'm the one up here, I'm having to talk to them, and sooner or later you just overcome that fear, that nerve-wracking experience?
Well, in military and in many other jobs, you have to brief superiors, you have to do presentations, you have to market something. So you have to speak, sometimes in front of only one person, sometimes many. And for my technique, my tool is I just remember the worst, most horrible public speaking experience I ever had, and I know nothing will ever be that bad, so I can do it.
So let me guess, you did something, you stood up there completely naked and said, this is horrendous, but at least it's a reference point.
Well, no, it was high school debate team, and I forgot my topic, and you were not allowed to sit down and use notes. You had to do your speech, and I had a 3 to 5 speech about the possibility of Ted Kennedy running for president after the accident where somebody drowned. And I got through 2 sentences and I could not talk. And 5 minutes later, 5 minutes of standing in front of a door, tears streaming down my face, as red as the red carpet in that room. My best friend crawled across the floor to give me my note card after the teacher gave her permission, and I still could not speak. And then finally, the debate coach let me sit down.
Oh my God.
After that, a 3-star general was easy.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Couldn't you just?
That's a good baseline. I'm impressed.
Yeah, that I think you win.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there thinking, "Oh, well, I did a speech and I couldn't read the last few lines of the speech and that was horrendous." I think they're all sitting back there now going, "Yeah, that's not a patch on what I had to put up with."
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you just fake it till you make it is a great thing to remember when you're in a position of doing something you're uncomfortable with, but you need to get it done.
I never like the pre-planning. Like if someone says, "I need you to come and talk to all of these people," I don't like that. Whereas I'm okay if I get lumped in it. And so, yeah, and that's happened a couple of times with work. Someone's come in and said, "Oh, can you come in and show me how to use this system you've installed?" I go, "Not a problem." And I walk in there and there's like a room full of people. Like, how do we go from 1 to 50? But yeah, I don't know. I think if I knew that there were going to be 50 people in the room, I wouldn't sleep.
No, it's not that bad.
It is. It's true. I don't know. It's interesting how the mind works. That we can, in our brain, it just runs away with us until you start freaking out. And see, I would be thinking, even if I went to one of these writing workshops, I'd be thinking, "No, they're going to make me read this out, aren't they? This is going to be horrendous."
Well, you're talking about that fear that comes up when we're doing something new or that's uncomfortable. And fear is a big part of the process for a young writer trying to get feedback. And fear is part of a lot of things that we do in life. And you asked me earlier what I brought back from my time in the military. And from my first war, in the first Gulf War in 1990-91, what I brought back was that fear is just a friend that you acknowledge and then you put back on the shelf because it's saying is take care, be careful. And as long as I acknowledge that, I can continue to operate with the fear right there.
It's a bit like when people say, they ask performers, do you still get nervous when you go out to perform stand-up or perform a show? And they all say yes, because if they weren't nervous, it meant they didn't care.
Right.
Yeah, stand-up is hard. I did it 5 times once. It's really hard.
Oh, really? We had Nathan Weaver on last week, and he's been doing stand-up, but we basically uncovered he's cheating because he's going to a coffee shop to do stand-up, and that doesn't count, does it, Nathan? I know you're listening now.
I did stand-up in a couple bars and in a music festival. It was tough.
Wow.
Okay. Why?
That would be tough.
What? Again, that comes down to a bit like the question I asked about getting into the armed forces. At what point were you going, yeah, I'm going to go and stand up there, and I'm going to be Miss Funny? Like,
well, I had my best friend at the time. I was in my 20s. We were really funny together, and we used to joke that we should do stand-up as a team. And then I was at a music festival. I was working at a music festival as a cook, actually. And the night before the festival starts, we have a staff show, and the opportunity presented for me to do something if I chose. And I decided to try it. So I went and I did stand-up for the first time in front of about 150 other staff for the music festival. And I did okay. People laughed. They told me they enjoyed it. So I went and tried it 4 more times when I got home. And it was a lot harder to do it in a bar with only 20 or 30 people than it was on a stage at a camp with 150 people out there, because I could see those 150 people, but in the bar, I couldn't see anybody because of the lights. And so I couldn't work off the reactions I was getting from people. It made it a lot harder to figure out what to say.
So I asked Nathan this. What was your opening line?
Well, I have no idea. It was 30 years ago.
Oh, come on. If you go out there, what do you say? Like I said to Nathan, you just say, how's it going? And you're standing there. I don't know. I don't know if I could do stand-up.
I did stand-up once. I had a group of, I had a whole selection of essays because I was a newspaper columnist at the time, and they were humorous essays, and a friend of mine did a stand-up kind of program at a coffee shop, and she says, come on, you'll be great. And so I said, okay, I can do it for 10 minutes. So I started talking, and I did it for about 10 minutes, and everyone was like, it's just your experience, Vicki, or they were laughing and they were enjoying it. And so I kept glancing over at my friend, and she kept giving me the signals like, keep going, it's great. I was like, all right, I've done stand-up. And then I retired on that success.
Oh, right.
There you go.
Because I was going to say, we've been doing this show for nearly, 3 years now, and I had no idea that you've tried stand-up, Catherine. So
yeah, I have. I have stood up and I have delivered. But yeah, I'm good now.
Yeah, that block on the bucket list is checked.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I was looking at it. I'm glad it was successful. I mean, that was way cool. But yeah, we're all done.
So
I'll be funny on this show. And yes, you can argue with me, Damien.
Can I? Oh, I don't like to argue. I never argue.
You never argue or make broad generalizations.
No. Yeah, it's because I'm Australian. That's what we'll say. All right, then. So, Vicki, did you then sit down with the comedy stuff? Did you try and write a sketch? So you did the first one and it went really well. Do you think, I might try it? When I go to try this again, did you either repeat the performance you did before the content, or did you sit down and try and write some stuff?
Well, I was very much a improv stand-up comic, and I would write down ideas, but I wouldn't really develop them so much as I needed to be in front of the audience to make some of it work. Trying to write an entire comedy thing would never work because I can't memorize anything. So it had to be much more impromptu.
I'm the same. I can barely remember the title of this show, let alone, the whole script. But, okay. I asked Nathan this last week, and he said that he'd only had this happen once. But were you ever heckled? I know you've only done 4 shows, but
yes.
Yeah.
In the bar, I was heckled.
How do you respond? What was some of the heckles, and how do you respond to that? Do you take it like some?
This was 30 years ago. Don't remember.
Oh, rubbish! You remember?
I probably just called the heckler out and turned it back on them.
See, that's it.
That's kind of what I do.
That was going to be my thing. How would you responded to that? Because some comedians would go ballistic at the heckler, or others would just ignore it. I
just would make fun of the heckler.
I think heckling's good, though. It's a bit like the writing review stuff because they feel passionate enough to call something out to you rather than someone who doesn't actually really like it. They're just sitting there, this isn't very funny, I might leave.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just want to heckle because that's what they like to do. It doesn't have anything to do with what's going on up there.
I would like a heckler because at least you could then feed off. Like if you're bombing, if it's just not working for you, and then someone yells, "You suck." I was like, well, yeah, I do. Now I can focus on you. And
you're healthier than a lot of us would be. I would have that kind of. I would have that kind of confidence because I wasn't heckled. Well, I guess when you teach, you get heckled all the time because it looks like questions. So you answer the questions.
Have you ever been heckled while teaching? That'd be awkward.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I had a student. I had a student last year who was he was pre-law and truly obnoxious and inappropriately. So I mean, there's all sorts of things that were a little bit wrong about him. But yeah, he would challenge everything I said and argue with everything I said, which was detrimental to the rest of the class. It was very disruptive. So yes, I have been heckled in class.
Oh, but not in a routine sort of way with someone yelling out, "Sit down, miss."
No, nothing like that.
Tomato flying across.
So, Damien, I have to ask you a question since you're in Australia.
Yes.
Do you play Australian rules rugby?
No. Look, here's the thing. I don't really like any football code. I don't know why. I find maybe it's because all the men here wear very tight shorts and it's quite off-putting. And they seem to hug each other a lot. The butt pat is unacceptable. Anyway. But I do like cricket. I like my cricket. I'm a big cricket fan. And I've got to give a big shout out to the Australian cricket teams in the final for the World Cup. So tomorrow we've got a big thing, barbecue, people coming around. It's going to be cool.
That's very cool. Congratulations.
I just like
that is a big thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because unlike baseball, we play countries from around the world. even we played. Well, I think Canada was in this Cricket World Cup, so we can't just say we're being. Yeah, I didn't see America in there. Maybe your cricket needs to improve.
I think cricket is just kind of starting up here.
Yeah.
And then it'll be, this is just like baseball. Yeah, right.
No.
It lasts 5 days.
I was going to say, no, it is not just like baseball. It's. I had cricket explained to me twice, and my sons listened to cricket explained to them like twice at a New Year's Eve party in Adelaide when we were in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And even after 2 kamikaze drinks, we still didn't get it. We were all like completely mystified. So my son said, I thought I listened to that. I'm not clear yet. I'll just have another drink.
Right. Well, look, there's been a lot of cricket. It's been on every couple of days here. World Cup, we've got a lot of games to get through. I've been watching some of it. And I occasionally, when I'm sort of just, it's a boring game or it's not going as fast as you'd like, I try and look at things subjectively. And I start to think, okay, if Catherine was sitting here, how would this game look to someone that doesn't really understand it? And I don't know, I found myself chuckling a little bit.
I'm glad I brought you joy.
Yeah, in a sense of, I thought, let's think about this game subjectively. There's a man who's wearing pads because we're throwing a ball that's got concrete in it at them at 150 k's an hour, and he has to use a stick to try and hit it somewhere. And then the whole point is to run to the other end. It's such a silly game.
But I always felt that balls and stick games were kind of silly. Robin Williams has a brilliant raft, one of our family favorite, on the invention of golf from a drunk Scottish point of view. And it comes down to being about as sensible as what you just described.
It is, and it's like rugby, and Vicki, you obviously like rugby.
Rugby's a great sport. I played it for like 20 years.
My old man does the same thing. Subjectively looks at things, and I can't watch any football now thanks to him, because he said, "Try and zone out and just watch their kneecaps." It's really silly. You see these little... anyway, try it next time. But I don't know. I've never liked football.
So Vicki, what we've got a couple of other things that we're going to do. What kind of advice do you have for a newbie writer if they are looking at putting together a critique group or they want to join a critique group? What would you suggest to them? Well,
first, I think they need to know what kind of advice they want to get back, what kind of critique they want. And there's a whole chapter about this that talks about this in the book. When they find one, they have to understand it's not just they're being interviewed by the group, they're interviewing the group too. And some of the things to look for is you want to get a group that's a functional, healthy group. And to me, that means they have some established guidelines for how they're going to operate. People know how often they're going to get to bring their work in. There's an agreement about how many pages you bring in, so you respect each other's time outside the group. There's a criteria for reading or for sharing work. And there's a criteria that's established for how you provide the critique so that everybody knows what the playing ground rules are. And as I'm looking for it, if I'm a brand new writer and it's my first writing group, I probably want a group that is pretty relaxed, that has all kinds of genres in there, and says we're gonna read our work together, and these are the guidelines for how we're gonna ask questions of each other.
Cool.
Now, just very quickly, what's the Emerging Writer Prize?
The Emerging Writer Prize is a scholarship that I fund every year to the San Francisco Writers Conference that's held President's Day weekend in February. It's 4 days of wonderful workshops and networking, and it's an excellent conference for the business of writing. It's not really a lot of craft that goes on except with the poets.
Yeah, the poets.
The poets have a great track, but they're the only ones that really deal with craft. The rest is more about marketing and social media and finding an agent and getting your manuscript ready, the whole business of being a writer. And when I first went to it, I was a volunteer, and the next year I came back as a paid attendee so I could access more of the workshops.
Mhm.
And from that year on, the following year on, I started funding a scholarship for other emerging writers to attend. Even though I'm still an emerging writer. I'm a little more emerged than I was in 2008, 8, and 9, but I thought it important to give this opportunity to other writers like me trying to figure out how to be a writer.
Mhm.
So I held a writing competition every year. And it's the first few years I would have like 1 or 2 or 5 entries. And now we average about 30 to 40 entries every year.
That's awesome. So we've
Very
got some
good.
links. Catherine's put some links in the notes for me. So we'll definitely post that up. Is that something that obviously
Yeah.
just people can contact and go through that process?
The prize competition is open every September 1st to December 1st.
Cool.
So you have 2 months to get your stuff in. And it's always the same time of year. The criteria is always the same. You answer the prompt, why I write, and you have 600 words to do that in. And then you provide 2 pages of a writing sample.
Right.
And it's unsubmittable. It's all done electronically now.
Mhm.
Which is good and bad in terms of the process. When it was not electronic, I felt a lot closer to the writers holding the actual work in my hands.
Mhm.
But now as it's all electronic, it's much more streamlined, but I miss that personal connection.
Hmm. Well, I'm sure that you'll get personal connections with people sending stuff in August.
Well, they can't because it's all electronic and it's only open September 1st to December 1st.
You get emails going, I tried to submit this early. You'll always get one.
Oh, I
Trust
got
me.
that when I was, I would get that where people are like, I submitted this, and I have to look at my note when I was doing the poetry anthology for Redwood Writers, and I have to look at my notes. It's like, yes, I got it. Well, can I send it to you again? No, I really don't want it again. Sometimes we get writers who are unfamiliar with the technology, and it freaks them out a little bit. So I would do some hand holding on that regard.
Yeah, I've had to do that a couple of times. Well, I'll get something sent 3 times because they're not sure how it works on Submittable. One thing that always happened when I was still getting it in the mail was I would clean out the post office box every week, and then when it was 5 days to the end of the deadline, I would wait a week till after the deadline to go to the box because always there were people who mailed their entry on the night it was due.
Right.
Yep.
Always. So I'd get 10 after the actual deadline. And as long as it was postmarked, I would still accept them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Yeah,
What
I
does
get
that say?
papers like that.
But what really gets me sometimes is people that don't read the instructions
Mhm.
and totally have no idea what they're submitting to. I had 3 submissions this year that were completely not related to what we were doing. One was an academic paper. 2 others were really off the wall. And one I actually called the writer to say, did you know you were submitting to this?
Oh, how
And I think
funny.
they thought I was an agent because they kept trying to sell me their book.
And that's exactly why they sent it to you, because they were, yeah, we've come across it before, and we've had, we've talked about it before, where people will find competitions or whatever it is to submit. Publishers, well, I ask publishers this all the time, and they go, oh, yeah, we're a romance publisher, but we get horror, because
Right.
they just send it through all the time, hoping that someone's going to go, yep, we'll publish that, or yep, you'll win. So, yes.
Yeah, there is some magical thinking that goes with that. And I forget, because I've been in the industry for quite some time, so I forget about know what you're sending things to, know what somebody's interested in. And, here you are, people are asking for a scholarship to an event they're not even familiar with. It's like, really?
Yeah, sometimes I get them internationally too. I've gotten several from Kenya, and I have to write them and say, you do understand there is no transportation as part of this prize.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not flying you from Kenya first
You have
class.
to get to San Francisco all by yourself.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But and I do have on my website a little GoFundMe campaign to try and raise funds to help support the scholarship.
Well, there you go.
Very good. Okay.
Well, where can people find you out on the internet?
At VickiHudson.com. VICKIHUDSON.
Done. What about Twitter? The Twitter?
Vicki Geist, VICKIGEIST.
There you go. All right. Well, we've got a couple of things to do, like a prompt. Should we do a prompt?
Yeah, your prompt.
You can read the prompt out, Catherine. It's yours.
I can read the prompt. So here's our prompt. Remember that admonishment, write what you know. We all know that one. Vicki's talking about that. So spend a few minutes writing down what you know. Maybe write everything about what you know, from the names of flowers to everything, all the degrees you've earned. Out of what you know, can you create a blog out of that? Can you write a poem? Is there a book in that? So write down everything you know for 10, 15 minutes and see if something new emerges.
Well, it can be like what we were talking about this morning pre-show. I know that if you've got a trolley or shopping cart full of frozen pizzas and baked beans, you're not going to be skinny. Anyway.
Yeah, but you want people to weigh their carts and then weigh themselves and announce it. And I said that there's no girl who's going to follow through with that one.
I want some feedback on this. I do have an idea to post up on or Google or something like that. Take a photo of your shopping cart. I have to use shopping. It's a trolley. It's called a trolley, people. So take a photo of your shopping cart just before you get to the checkout, and take a photo of your shopping list if you want as well, and then post your weight, how much you weigh.
I told you this is not going to work.
Come on. I don't know. I've just been seeing a lot of people.
So are we making a correlation between the weight of the cart and the weight of the person pushing the trolley?
No, it's what's in there. So if you've got, because I've been seeing a lot of very unhealthy fat people at my shopping center that seem to have like, you do not need 9 bottles of Coke in your weekly shop. And it's that sort of thing. And it was only because I saw a few of these things and some really unhealthy people. And I then thought, well, hang on, how does my shopping cart compare to theirs? Oh, I've got fruit in there. And I weigh 80.
Woo, you win.
And I weigh 80 kilos and they weigh like 5,000. So I just wanted to try, and I thought I'm going to do that. Just post up and go, here's my shopping cart. And this is how much I weigh. I dare someone else to take a photo of theirs and show how much they weigh. And to make that mental thought of going, I weigh this much because I've bought this much crap. Has nothing to do with diets, paleo diets, or breathing air through your left nostril crap.
This is your gift to mankind.
It is, yes. I'm helping society in some way.
Are you helping society? Oh, I'm so relieved someone has to.
Do a
All
word
right, so you give us word of the week, and you can help mankind doing that.
Right. So word of the week is from Arlene Miller and her Weird and Wonderful Words series at bigwords101.com. And I did glance at this as I scrolled down, and I nearly mispronounced this. So, eructation. I thought it said erection first.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But it means belching or the discharge of a volcano. Well, it's probably like an erection then, really, isn't it? Yeah,
or eruption. There's all sorts of words that would go along with that.
Right. I don't think Vicki would have used eructation in a poem. You can't even get anything to really rhyme with that.
Well,
No.
A lot of poetry doesn't rhyme.
No, but I don't know how you could get that into. Why can't people just say belching?
No reason why not. I just try to find weird words.
Who uses the word belching further to that? Ooh, don't mind me. I belched.
No, you do burp politely.
You reckon the Queen?
Okay, so
you reckon the Queen burps politely, or does she rip one out? Hey, should we do? Yes, we can do a tortured sentence.
Tortured sentence.
Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences.
So I uncovered that from Vicki's debate team.
That was inside your head, right, Vicki?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Where did this come from?
This came from one of my students.
All right. So the decision-making process must support and contradict the potential final decision by challenging each of the opposing sides. She will do so by looking for information that confirms or disconfirms their own beliefs. These should be solemnly facts. Right.
I liked solemnly facts a lot.
Yeah, but
That is a nice term.
Isn't that a nice term? Solemn. It's very poetic. Solemnly facts.
It is. But I also like, I don't know. I like the sentence where it's sort of, it must support and contradict.
Right.
It must confirm and also disconfirm. Like, well, you effectively mean nothing. So it must
essentially that's it. And disconfirm. I like confirm and disconfirm. I thought disconfirm was a good word.
Well, it's not even a word according to my.
No, I know. That's why I like it. I love it when they make up stuff. It's just marvelous because they're trying to be parallel and they're trying to okay, you have this or that, and so they just assume, which is legitimate in the English language. If you have confirm, then the opposite of confirm would be disconfirm rather than unconfirm. It's hard to figure out what is it what is it? So it's reasonable that they make these mistakes, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to put them on the show.
So if they disconfirm, does that make them a disconfirmist?
A disconfirmist, exactly.
Jeez. Anyway, all right. Well, shout outs, Vicki. It's been a pleasure having you on. Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to?
There is. I would like to give a shout out to a book I recently reviewed. I'm trying to find a home for the review, but Rebecca Faust has a new book coming out, Paradise Drive. I'm interviewing her on my website in April. It's part of my author interview series, and it's got to be the best poetry book that I have read. I
really
literally could not put it down because I was reading it out loud. My voice gave out, so I read the second half of the book a couple of days later. But it was it's a terrific collection of 80 sonnets called Paradise Drive.
Paradise Drive, okay.
And then a shout out to my kids and my wife, Monica.
Oh, very good.
There you go. See, you have listened to this show before. You know how shout outs work. You don't get the, what do you mean, shout outs? Oh, okay. Start screaming, away you go. Oh, God, anyway.
But I did want to get you guys to mention my writer's author series that I do every month on my website, where I interview an author or other interesting publishing person.
Well, there you go. You just did. Yes.
Exactly.
It's good. I like it when I have people that interview other authors on, because it's a skill to try and squeeze things out of them. Anyway.
Sometimes we have to squeeze harder than others.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's fine. Who have we got on next week?
Next week, we have Betsy Talbot is going to be on, and I don't have any notes as to why, but it'll be fabulous.
That's Easter, isn't it?
That is Easter.
So I guess I probably shouldn't take a photo of my shopping cart this week.
No, do not do photo. No, because people aren't eating all the food in their cart. They are feeding an enormous family, and then they have the Peeps, and they've got the candy sugar eggs and all of that, jelly beans and Cadbury eggs, all that kind of good stuff. So cut them some slack. They're going to go out and scatter that into the lawn.
Did you just say Peeps?
Peeps, P-E-P. Oh, come on, you know what Peeps are.
Like
Don't
Peeps?
they have Peeps in Australia?
Well, that sounds like something that a very white person would say when they're trying to be more homely.
My gosh, you
Peeps.
Catherine, you have to send them some.
That is tragic. You know how expensive it is to mail things to Australia. But I'm tempted. I'm very tempted. I wonder if the post office, when they say, "Do you have anything toxic in the
Peeps aren't toxic; they'll just last forever, and they're very light. So
Peeps
it shouldn't
are
cost too much.
Marshmallow little chickens. They're made out of marshmallows, and they're flattened a little bit, and when they're bright. Look it up on Google, and they're bright yellow or purple now. Yellow is the traditional color, and they're just marshmallows.
Right.
And
sugared candy with sugar on them.
Yeah, sugar candy with sugar on them.
And I don't have these. Why?
I don't know why you don't have those.
Huh.
You're deprived.
Well,
yeah.
I did pass on to Sharon that, because we got the Ben and Jerry's ice cream in some service stations here, just in a little fridge. It's not really big here, but
did you try some?
Well, not yet. But I said, Catherine says you've got to, check these out, that you'll like them. And she goes, well, I don't really like ice cream. and I only like sort of sorbet stuff. And she was going down the list, and then I hear, oh, they've got English toffee. Yes, you should get some.
I knew it. They have something for everybody.
So I'll sort that out. But anyway. All right. Well, that'll do it for this week. Thank you, Vicki, for being on. It was good.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's all right.
Sure. It was a pleasure.
Until next week, see you then.
See you then.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.